Well, hello and welcome to episode number 342 of the Plane Talking UK podcast. I'm Carlos, and in this week's episode, we learn that Berlin's Brandenburg Airport is almost ready and finally open its doors to the public. There's good news as Wizz Air begins to open its new base at Gatwick, and Lufthansa runs into a spot of bother as they discover 6 of their 747s are stuck in the Netherlands. In the military this week, we hear news on the E4 Doomsday plane, and a 102-year-old World War II veteran checks skydiving off her bucket list. And finally, David Kavanagh gets his question answered as the Plain Truth makes its very welcome return. And joining me this week, as always, he's absolutely, and I mean this, 100% stress-free this week. It's Matt Smith.
He forgot to put his fader up. Then I'll try it with a fader up, shall I? Yes. So smooth, slick, like nothing ever went wrong. Yes, I'm very stress-free, thank you. I've had a few days away, ladies and gentlemen. I had 4 rather very pleasant days in the Cotswolds. Very nice it was too.
I know. I had the pleasure of looking after Mima.
Oh yes, that's it. Yes, Carlos was very much on pussycat duties. I have to confess, I don't know what. I mean, do you bring catnip or something? Because I've never seen anything like it. The cat was like she came to greet you and sit on your lap and stuff like that. She never does anything like that with me. She can't get away from me fast enough. So
she's so gorgeous. Honestly, I don't know if any of you guys who watch the show have seen Matt's cat, but she's got like a touch of Maine Coon sort of feature to her face, isn't she? As a cat, and she's incredibly fluffy. She's got like huge hair going on, or fur going on her, but she's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, and the thing is when Carlos walks in the room, she literally goes bananas. If I walk in the room, I'm very much looked at like one of life's servants. She looks as me as if, and John will back me up on this because John's been here too. He knows exactly what. He literally looks at me like I am life's, one of life's lowest people. You're only good enough for opening the door for me.
Poppy does that as well.
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. As I say, Carlos's cat nothings me too. So perhaps it's just me. Difficult not to take it personally.
Oh, they all love you, really. You've got Alfie.
I have. He's awesome. Yeah.
Good. You may notice that this week we are missing Mr. Bounds. Nev he's off. I think he's gone to another vineyard somewhere in the UK this week, just for trying stuff out. So
has he?
Yeah.
Right.
Hopefully Nev will be back next week. And Armando, unfortunately, can't be with us this week as well due to work commitments. I suspect he's busy flying or drinking, one of the two, or having a good time somewhere. So we miss you both.
Hopefully not at the same time.
Hopefully not at the same time, no. But we have pulled all the stops out. We have completely obliterated our Patreon fund this week. Ooh. And we've got our guest to sign a contract. And we're glad to say that for a slight fee of just over $6 million, we've managed to poach the best part of APG. So welcome onto the show, and our new host.
We've got Captain Jeff, have we? Oh, brilliant.
Dr. Steph.
Well, thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it, and it's great to be here. I'm really looking forward to an awesome show with you guys. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I do appreciate you going forward with that contract. It's really going to help out my student loans.
The worrying thing is both myself and John are panicking because it's just like, what on earth has he done? What has he signed? It's like, where was the memo?
I was a little surprised to get what I asked for, but thank you.
Okay. I mean, I don't doubt for a nanosecond that you're worth every penny.
Steph initially asked for $5 million, and I said, "No, Steph, don't
have
be
6.
so
Right,
have
have
6.
6. Lovely. Okay. Anyway, before the producer starts screaming in our ears,
no, thanks, Steph, for joining us. It's lovely to see you as well.
My pleasure. Great to see you guys.
There's lots to do this week on the show, but we're going to say a quick mention to everyone who has joined us in the YouTube chat room this evening. All the usual names in there, and family members. I'm going to scroll down the list quickly. Well, Alan Loveday, hello to you, Alan. Auntie Liz is in there. Graham Haley, Richard Adams, Rakon is in there. Andrew van der Sag, hello, Andrew. We've got Dave Abbey, hello to you, Dave. Neil Lamworn, Jonathan Warner, Tanya W is also in the chat room as well this week. Hello to you, Tanya. Scrolling down, make sure I don't miss anyone. Jan Hubner, hello to you, Jan. Hope you're well. Stephen H. Masha, hello to you, Masha. Let me go. I don't think I've missed anyone. Hopefully not. But don't forget, if you are listening to the audio version of the podcast and you want to come over and see what the madness is like when we do a live recording on YouTube, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on our Plain Talking UK page on YouTube, and also the bell icon next door to the subscribe button, which is right next to it, to be notified when we're live and recording the new episode, so you can join us in the live chat room.
Or if you're like me, where you think video is a very silly idea and HD is not your friend, then maybe just stay on the audio version. That would be my advice.
No, the chat room is too good. The chat room is too precious.
Yeah. If we could do a audio version where we had access to the amazing chat room, then I'd be very happy. But no. There we are.
Anyway, so we are going to start the show then, as we do each week, with a rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if everyone is ready.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go.
We're ready.
So, kicking off this week's first news story, this one comes from a few news sources, the Argus.co.uk, Anna.aero, and aviationbusinessnews.com. This one, the headline, Wizz Air UK opens new base at Gatwick Airport. This is great news, guys, because obviously Gatwick have had some really bad times over the last few months with airlines moving away.
Was it BA? They lost a load of BA flights, didn't they?
Virgin, I think, as well. Yeah,
oh,
they
really?
lost a lot.
Oh, gosh,
but Wizz Air opened its third UK hub at Gatwick Airport last week. A Wizz Air spokesman said that Wizz Air started flying from Gatwick in 2016 and since then has carried almost 1 million passengers. With the creation of a new base at Gatwick, Wizz Air will offer passengers even more affordable travel opportunities, with 450,000 seats per annum on sale on its new routes to popular holiday destinations. Passengers can fly from Gatwick with Wizz Air to a range of exciting destinations, including routes which are new to Naples, Athens, Malta, and Lanzarote. Wizz Air will now have one Airbus A321 aircraft flying these new routes to and from the airport. After announcing that Wizz Air UK will be opening its new base at Gatwick, the airline's managing director, Owain Jones, said the expansion reinforces Wizz Air UK's position as a British airline that is growing and creating new jobs, bringing much-needed connectivity to the UK and so helping the economy get back in the air. The Doncaster Sheffield base was also officially launched last week, where an A320 aircraft is already located, with another one arriving in December. By the end of the year, Wizz will have launched routes to Larnaca, Tenerife South, Lublin, Malaga, Lanzarote, Alicante, Poznan, Gran Canaria, Suceava, I think that's Suceava, yeah, Suceava, there we go, Faro, Lisbon, Košice, Fuerteventura, and Eindhoven from Doncaster.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing.
I'm just laughing at the notes there. Very good.
No, I think the Doncaster pronunciation guy was for me. Right. So you're good.
The move means that Wizz has added over 560,000 seats per annum to its Doncaster Sheffield capacity. The airline is now operating 132 routes to 73 destinations from 11 UK airports, and they'll also be collecting John, our producer, soon, and ferrying him to the middle of nowhere for us. So, yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. And that's okay. I don't know what to do with that information. I'm slightly scared. For anybody who's interested, by the way, and you don't know the UK geography, by the way, Doncaster is probably sort of like, I call it like the middle.
Is that London Doncaster?
Of the UK. It's not London Doncaster.
That's what it says when I try to book a flight from the States to London. Like, I get all these options.
Right.
Should I do Doncaster. next time?
Doncaster, yes,
London,
absolutely.
Doncaster.
Okay.
Must be,
Yeah,
that's
depends
not
on
far from London Liverpool Airport.
Right, London, Liverpool. Okay, shall we move on?
No, this is great news, guys. I'm glad to see this for more than one reason. Obviously, because they're flying to Malta from there, which is handy for me, but also because it does give a bit. It does give a bit of hope, I think, for staff and people who work at Gatwick.
Yeah, certainly for the footfall through Gatwick Airport, it's got to be good news, isn't it? Because obviously having, as we were saying, wasn't it? Like you were saying, Virgin and both BA have obviously pulled out of there, so that's had quite an impact, no doubt, on the shops and services and the general footfall going through Gatwick, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's great news. So hopefully they'll continue to expand, and we can save Gatwick at least, anyway.
Well, indeed, this is true.
So, Matt,
yes.
the next story.
Yes.
And this is, this is a Ryanair story, but it's, is it doom and gloom?
Kind of. It's
doom
a sort
and
of
gloom.
mixed bag, I think is the best way to describe it. So this is on the Irish Examiner website, irishexaminer.com, and the headline is Kerry Airport to remain open despite the loss of Ryanair flights. So Kerry Airport is to remain open despite the cessation of all of its flights apart from the twice daily route, regional route into Dublin. The airport, which is heavily subsidised by the state, managed to retain all of its 67 staff during the last lockdown, but the impact on staff by the recent changes is not known yet. Ryanair was the only airline operating internationally to and from Kerry and had already reduced the frequency of its flights to the UK and had stopped the flight to Germany. The airline will now cease flights from the Munster region, including Kerry, Cork and Shannon airports, for 4 weeks from November the 14th. Only the Kerry to Dublin flights operated by Aer Lingus contractor Stobart Air and heavily subsidised by the state will remain. Kerry Airport CEO John Mulhern said he remained open throughout the first wave of the pandemic, and we will continue to operate into the future to facilitate the needs of the emergency air services who require a landing base in Kerry. The PSO route between Kerry and Dublin also continues to be a crucial lifeline for passengers travelling for essential work, education and healthcare needs. Mr Mulhern said that he was hopeful that Christmas flights would return to accommodate the many Kerry natives abroad. Now this is just a temporary closure as far as or it's just a temporary stopping of Ryanair flights as far as I'm aware. So presumably when the spring season starts and that flight calendar opens up, then presumably flights will return to Kerry with Ryanair. So it's just a winter closure, I suppose. Yeah.
I like the note here on the show notes that John has put in that says, for reference, Knock is about twice as busy as Norwich Airport, so they must have at least 3 or 4 flights a week.
Right, I do get very, very. In fact, actually, if anybody wants to know exactly where, let's pop that up. Look, there we go. So. Okay, sorry. Yes, we're talking about why is Knock relevant? Sorry, somebody explain to me. Oh, I see. Oh, right. Knock is closing for 4 weeks because of the is another airport that's closing, but the one we're actually referring to here is Kerry Airport, and that's sort of yeah. Yeah.
Have you been? You've obviously travelled to Ireland quite a few times, Matt. Have you been down that part of Ireland?
No, I have to confess. Unfortunately, all of the trips that I've done into, Dublin is probably the nearest I've got to there, really. Most of my stuff has been Northern Ireland because I've got family there. It's never quite got to. Have you
travelled to Ireland, Steph?
There.
I have. I was actually just looking back at my photos to see if I was in that area or not, because I can't remember. Close-ish. So I went to Killarney.
Yeah,
in Kerry. Yeah.
I did not fly over there, but I think I traveled by bus. So
wow.
yeah.
Okay. Yes.
That was back in. Oh man, that was 2011. So that's been a while.
I think the furthest south I've been is Dublin, probably actually.
Same as me.
Where's Giant's Causeway in relation to that? It's Belfast, right? Okay, so it's northern. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yes. No, so Dublin's the furthest I've been. So you've done better than me then, Steph.
Oh, but I think Steph's yet to use Ryanair, so...
I have never flown on Ryanair.
Yay.
That's true.
Okay, lucky you. Yes, that's
Is it? Okay.
Very proud.
I'll wear that like a badge of honor, although it'll probably happen at some point.
Yes, indeed.
It's an inevitability, I'm sure.
As I always refer to it as the buses of the skies. You know, it's very functional. It does exactly what it says on the tin.
Yeah,
you know.
I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And I must admit, I rather
point A
love
to point B.
they invented these Lufthansa coffees, and one of my friends who used to Lufthansa. Sorry, I'm being told off. Lufthansa, whatever, Lufthansa, it's fine.
Look, Steph. Just imagine Southwest. They are nothing like them at all.
Yeah, I've flown Southwest
bad?
quite a fair amount, and their services.
Hang on,
I always appreciate
better
Southwest
or worse,
service.
Carlos? Where are you going with that?
No. Southwest, flying Southwest is like flying, well, first class compared to flying on Ryanair.
Oh, really?
Oh, I don't know about that.
I think it would be terribly
I
unfair.
actually think you'd probably find it.
Interestingly, Jan Hoover is actually saying, I've been to Kerry Airport in 2008, wouldn't really call it an international airport. Mind you, they call it Norwich International Airport as well, don't they? And that's a bit of a joke, let's be honest. But,
they do have aircraft fly from there, Matt. It's just that probably at least a good 60% of the traffic that flies out of Norwich is probably offshore helicopters that go to the rigs.
Absolutely, yeah. This is it. There's a lot of also. To be fair, there's an awful lot of BA planes there at the moment as well, but not.
Well, storage, yeah. Embraer. There are a lot of Embraers sitting on the.
There are on the top. It's lovely because every time I go down the NDR or whatever the heck it's called now, I can see them all from the.
Yeah, but have you found Matt how annoying that is? Because literally, I've driven down the NDR before road, and I'm like this. You see, the difference is you like aeroplanes, and I like to be as far away from them as possible.
I'm concerned about your lack of concentration on the road ahead of you as you're driving.
Steph, we all are. I'll be honest with you.
I have lane assist in the truck, so it tells me if I'm veering off to the one side.
Yeah, that'll help with it.
Anyway,
Micah is suggesting that Southwest is Southwest without all the glamour, apparently.
Yes, all the glamour of Southwest. To be fair, I love Southwest Airlines. They're great, but same thing. You get what you know. It's exactly as advertised. Trip from point A to point B.
Okay, I want to know why. Is it even a shed? Rude, John. Rude. Sorry.
Anyway, Steph, you have got the next story all about the wonderful viruses. Yes.
So this is from Axios, I believe, .com. And the title is Boeing Research Shows Disinfectants Kill Virus on Airplanes. So Boeing and researchers at the University of Arizona say their experiment with a live virus on an unoccupied airplane proves that the cleaning methods currently used by airlines are effective in destroying the virus that causes COVID-19. Why does this matter? Kind of obvious, but deep cleaning the aircraft between flights is one of many tactics the airline industry is using to try to restore public confidence in flying during the pandemic. The researchers say that their study proves that there is virtually no risk of transmission from touching objects, including armrests, tray tables, overhead bins, lavatory handles on a plane. We're not just showing we can kill things, University of Arizona microbiologist Charles Gerba said. We're showing it's going to be safer to travel tomorrow. I'm going to skip a little bit of this and go down to what they did. So they applied something called MS2 or MS, that's not squared. So whatever that is, it's a surrogate virus deemed not harmful to humans, but more difficult to kill than SARS-CoV-2. And they spread it all throughout the cabin. And then they took about 230 strategic high-touch points that they targeted, including seat tray tables, armrests, seat cushions, storage bins, inside the lavatory and galley. The technicians then disinfected each area with various products and technologies using both manual wiping methods and electrostatic spraying. And the tests also measured how well Boeing's ultraviolet wand and antimicrobial coatings worked. So exactly what they found. The University of Arizona analyzed each area post-disinfection and found that all the recommended products, methods, and technologies successfully destroyed the MS2 virus and thus could be expected to kill the coronavirus as well. Boeing and the University of Arizona continue to test recommended cleaning methods in a lab against coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, and other similar viruses to further validate their efficacy.
There we are. Now, we've actually got a little video that we're going to play that came from, I think it came from the Boeing website, so let's give that a little play.
We're going to have, from a microbiologist standpoint who studied disease all my life, the safest flying experience you can have today. I'm Dr. Charles Gerba, and what I've done for the last 30 years is studied how viruses move through the environment and transmitted from one person to the next. What we're doing with Boeing is evaluating innovative strategies really to control the spread of SARS-CoV-2 in aircraft. It's really exciting working on this project because we're actually able to put a live virus in an aircraft and then demonstrate we can inactivate and kill this virus.
This is unprecedented. The live virus MS2 testing is something we've never done before. MS2 is a surrogate virus that we're using here. It's innocuous to humans, it's safe and easy to use, and in fact it's harder to kill than SARS-CoV-2. A lot of our researchers, scientists, and engineers have tested a number of these solutions in the lab, and they've gathered some pretty good results, and what we're doing is taking that another step further and really validating those results in a representative space.
All the items we tested performed very well against SARS-CoV-2. We've demonstrated this works in real aircraft, and it totally minimizes your exposure to SARS-CoV-2.
This is an integral part of our confident travel, multi-layered approach. The testing that we're doing here is really boosting confidence in ensuring that we keep our airplanes clean, safe, and sanitary.
We're not just showing we can kill things, we're showing that it's going to be safer to travel tomorrow.
Thoughts, Dr. Steph?
So I think there was a good comment in the chat room that said from Rakon. I hope Rakon, very clever. I hope that some of the new hygienic standards will be kept after the pandemic ends, and I think that's a very astute observation. So, there's been a lot of prior to this whole COVID-19 pandemic. How many times did you have stories about what are the dirtiest places on an airplane, like tray tables, handles, seat cushions, things like that. And if we have effective methods to clean all of those things, that's going to decrease risk of transmission of not only coronavirus, COVID-19, other germs, pathogens, viruses, and I think it's a good idea.
Excellent.
Couldn't agree more. Really, it's as you say, it's one of
peace of mind.
If there was one thing, I mean. I'm probably more comfortable about flying on an aeroplane now than I think I have been for a long time, and that's just because you say the standards are very high and stuff. And I mean, actually talking from my perspective, so many of you know I do some coach driving, and I work for a local company, and the lengths that the company that I work for, I'll mention them, Lambert's. There's this very intense, deep cleaning, rich, routine that we have to do every time we come back from a school run. We're having to essentially deep clean the vehicle morning and afternoon. I mean, that's not just once a day. It's being essentially worked on like between each school run. I mean, it's part of you sort of thinking, with great strives have been made to hygiene and improving standards, and certainly as far as the aviation industry is concerned, as you say, let's hope that continues when we get to hopefully the other side of this at some point.
And then the follow-up question from Richard Adams was, how are they going to clean that thoroughly on a 20-minute turn? So I've taken a couple flights recently, and I will tell you that before passengers have even gotten off the aircraft, there are already cleaning crews on board, like in the first few rows, trying to go through and, at least wipe down all of those high-touch surfaces once there's no one in those seats, and then the rest of it is happening kind of after everyone's off, before the next flight boards.
Yeah, this is true. Actually, they're having a conversation in the chat room about sort of where they picked up, because people will quite often come back from holiday with a stomach bug or whatever, and of course you're assuming that you picked it up from the like where you were staying or whatever, but of course there is every chance you could have picked it up on board the aircraft. That is a genuine. We have covered stories, Matt, if you remember, in the past where passengers have I think it was a BA aircraft where someone was sitting in one of the Club World seats and they had like food and various bits and pieces down the sides of the seats and that. So yeah, it's possible. I think now things are a lot better now. Things are a hell of a lot better. Yeah, absolutely. But as everybody's saying, let's hope that the standards maintain. Obviously, when at some point we do end up the other side of this. I mean, maybe this could be the one big positive thing that comes out of all of this.
Stephen H in the chat room says it doesn't want to live in a world where we're just exposed to chemicals everywhere you turn.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah. It is a good point.
As long as they smell nice, I don't mind.
Well, yes, yeah. I suppose the interesting thing about the UV light and stuff, I suppose, is because they've not used those before. But presumably, that's highlighting all sorts of touch points and greasy marks and things that perhaps weren't obvious before. These things weren't getting the scrutiny that they do now, which is perhaps a good thing.
And hopefully the various chemicals and disinfectants are going through a similar level of scrutiny in terms of their safety for,
as long as they're not doing us any harm. That's the only thing that makes me a bit nervous, perhaps from that perspective. But it's good news, isn't it? I think in the long run. Anyway, we could talk about this for hours. We better move on.
Yep, Matt. Next one for you.
Oh, is it?
Brandenburg Airport. Yay! It's opening.
Okay. Yes, indeed. So. This is where I'm going to screw up several names because I've practiced it, but I still won't get it right. Anyway, so it's Mood-eyed something or other. Anyway, the link for this will be in the show notes. Anyway, the headline is Countdown. Countdown continues to opening of Berlin Brandenburg Airport. Now, many of you may remember that actually we covered this quite a while ago. Details to follow. So the Brandenburg Airport, Berlin, Schonfeld, is renamed Terminal 5. So as the opening of the Berlin Brandenburg Airport Terminal 1 nears on the 31st of October. So that's tomorrow, isn't it? It reopens or opens tomorrow. I've already forgotten how he said it, but Schonefeld Airport has been named BER Terminal 5 with its airport code changing from Sierra X-Ray Foxtrot. With the opening of the new airport at the end of the month, all flight operations serving the German capital will be concentrated at a single airport. The existing facilities at Schonefeld Airport will continue to operate, while Berlin Tegel, is that correct? Is that all right? To take Tegel will close from the 8th of November. Flughafen Berlin Brandenburg CEO Engelbert Lucht Daltrup said as of today the official IATA code BER stands for Berlin Brandenburg Airport. Willy Brandt. Okay, what's that? Okay. Anyway, at a small reception at the weekend, presumably because of COVID, the previous lettering on the roof of the terminal building was handed over to the municipality I knew that beer was a really bad idea of Schonefeld. The new lettering BER Terminal 5 was then officially inaugurated. Lucht Daltrup added that the SFX is now BER as BER Terminal 5. The completely renovated Schonefeld Airport will ensure the necessary additional capacities for the next few years to reliably handle flight operations at BER. Schonefeld will thus remain a central part of the airport. A total of 17 airlines, including Ryanair and Wizz Air, will operate from Terminal 5. The terminal can handle 8 to 10 million passengers a year, although I don't suppose that'll be a problem for a little while, with capacity across the airport terminals 1, 2 and 5 over 40 million a year. Between the opening of Terminal 1 and the closing of Tegel, all airlines will relocate to Berlin Brandenburg Airport in stages. T1 will house 120 shops, restaurants and service units spanning more than 20,000 square meters, with F&B outlets, food and beverage outlets featuring a strong flavour of the Berlin region. Now there is actually a quick correction from the article. So Berlin Tegel will cease flight operations on the 8th, not the 7th. The 7th of November will see the last regular regularly scheduled flights depart, and an Air France flight will mark the last flight to depart on the 8th of November. Kind of poetic, really, as Air France were also the first to land at Tegel with a super constellation in January 1960. And actually, there is a really lovely video that I'm just going to play very quickly because it is so cool. Going back to when their first flight, basically back in 1960, and this is. This little video here is of said aircraft coming into land at that airport when it first opened. So it's kind of sweet, really, isn't it, that it's going to close with the same airline sort of flying in as its last flight. I think that's quite neat and tidy, don't you?
Was that Nev there with his 4K?
Quite possibly that's Nev there with
camera.
his 4K camera, yes. For those of you listening to the audio version, it's a black and white video, basically, because, funnily enough, it was 1960 and they hadn't invented that yet. But
that's one of those aircraft. Yeah. That is one of those aircraft. It's on my bucket list, to-do list. I would love.
Is it?
Love to fly on a Constellation. I really would.
Mm.
Yeah. Are there any still
airplane.
in operation?
Yeah. There's Breitling have got a Constellation, Connie, based out in Geneva. And I'm pretty sure there are some other Connies. I think Micah would probably be the man to ask about that.
Yeah, that's true. That
at the
is true.
TWA hotel at JFK, they have one just parked outside the hotel itself, and it's a bar inside, which is actually kind of nice.
Wow.
Indeed.
It's cool.
Yeah,
Good
that
vibe in there.
cool.
Add that to the list for next year's visit, Steph.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Quick stop at JFK.
Lovely. Okay.
Moving on to the next story on the list. This one comes to us from airlive.net. And, this is one thing that you don't want to happen to your 747s, that's for sure. Get them stuck. But the headline, 6 Lufthansa Boeing 747-400s are stuck in the Netherlands because they're just too heavy to take off. So 6 of the 747 of the German airline Lufthansa have been temporarily parked in Twente Airport in the Netherlands since the summer. The 6 747s are at risk of not being able to leave the airport due to a change from the Human Environment and Transport Inspectorate, the ILT. The first 2 Boeing 747s landed into Twente at the beginning of June, the last on the July the 24th. The planes landed there because it was one of the few airports where there is still room to park such large planes. Lufthansa aircraft are now obsolete and will no longer be in use or used in the future. However, the aircraft will not be dismantled in Twente and have to leave soon. That's what the guy said. But the 6 747-400s are too heavy to take off from its regional airport, as the infrastructure and departure procedures have not been approved for wide-bodied operations. Twente Airport simply does not have the correct safety certificate, and larger aircraft such as Boeing's can land at Twente, but only for dismantling. The airport infrastructure is not suitable for taking off larger and heavier aircraft. Twente Airport has been working for some time to adjust the safety certificate, but the airport has not yet met the necessary conditions, and it's not clear how long this could possibly take place. So, Technology Base, the organisation in charge of redeveloping the former airbase, and the ILT, the Dutch Transport Inspectorate, have consulted constructively in recent days to find a solution for the safe departure of the aircraft, they said in a statement. The one-off exemption is a contingent that special rules be followed, like flying the aircraft with little fuel and a light gross weight. Both parties agreed that the current state of affairs cannot be repeated. Lufthansa aircraft can thus depart from Twente Airport. The first aircraft should leave shortly. The ILT said the 3 aircraft were already sold to American aircraft recycler GE Aviation Materials and will depart before the end of this year. According to ILT spokesperson Danielle Rebel, Twente Airport offered the parking facilities for Lufthansa on its own initiative, and the inspectorate was not informed in advance. Oh dear. Twente Airport simply does not have the correct safety certificate. Larger aircraft such as the Boeings can land, but only for dismantling, as I said earlier in the story. And it says here that flight procedures before departure have also got to be obviously approved before they can leave. So the runway here at the airport. It's 7,894 feet by 150 feet with a strength, it says here, PCN of 62, and there's lots of letters here, FAWT, whatever that means. I'm sure someone...
Yeah, I should just explain that there was so the research basically was done by John, because and we did have a very long conversation before the show started, where John explained everything to me, and I'm afraid it sort of went straight in one ear and out the other because it was very complicated. But the rough summary of what we were getting at basically. So where the planes are basically has a runway length of 7,894 feet, which is long enough, by 150 feet, which means it's wide enough, with a strength of PCN. So PCN stands for Pavement Classification Number, which is the measurement of a pavement strength, and then the ACN, which is the Aircraft Classification Number. So the long and the short of that is essentially those numbers should mean that it can, there's obviously some other reason why aircraft aren't allowed to go in there and take off, essentially, is what it is. So I don't know if it's a legal thing or something like that is the reason why they can't.
We ran a story before, if you remember, Matt. There was an aircraft that was parked somewhere, and it made a terrible mess of the
yes.
taxiway it was parked on, because it was too heavy. It was too heavy.
Yes, no, I get that, but as I say, the airport where these aircraft are, the PCN strength, basically the concrete strength, is sufficient to be able to support the weight, and that's so. There must be another reason. There
it's
must
just
be
all
another
red
reason
tape.
why.
Red tape.
Right.
Red tape.
Okay. But there must be another reason why they're not allowed. Why they've had to get special permission to leave. Anyway, none of us are qualified enough, frankly, to talk about that in great length. But they have been granted the special permission, so they are able to take off. So those 4 aircraft will be able to leave there. Anyway, clear as mud, everyone. Excellent.
So, Matt, next story, and we're off to Mobile for the next story, Matt.
Right. Okay. Although, again, when we were having our briefing, I kept referring it to mobile, and again,
Mobile.
the
It's
producer
definitely Mobile.
was getting quite waspy about my inability to read out loud. It is Mobile. Yes, absolutely.
It's Mobile.
Simple flying. Anyway, I'm going to pretend you lot aren't talking. Simple fly. Whoa. Okay. Pop-ups.
I've run out of beer.
Pop-ups everywhere. It is simpleflying.com, and I have got an ad blocker on, yes, and that's why. So anyway, I'll try that again. Simpleflying.com is the website, and the headline is Airbus, I'm going to ignore you now, Airbus to begin offering tours of its Mobile final assembly line, which is is that correct? Yes. Oh no.
Close enough.
Okay. What was it?
Just say it.
Say it again.
Mobile, Alabama.
Mobile, Alabama. Okay, right. I need to lie down. Airbus is opening the doors of its A320 assembly site in Alabama to the public next month. On Saturday, the 14th of November, Flightworks, an aerospace exhibition and education centre next door to the Airbus site, will run 4 tours open to anyone who can join. So according to the Flightworks, these will be the first ever public tours of the Alabama aircraft factory. So the Airbus Mobile factory is the major assembly and delivery site for Airbus commercial aircraft in the United States. It is one of 4 assembly and delivery points for Airbus A320 family aircraft, and one of 2 final assembly and delivery points for the Airbus A220, which obviously is their new very popular aircraft. These tours will be of the A320 factory. The Mobile factory will produces A320 family aircraft bound for North American customers. Delta Airlines, Spirit Airlines, Air Canada, and American Airlines, and and American Airlines are some of the local airlines flying A320s and their variants made in Mobile. The aircraft Mobile, you're doing this on purpose, is relatively new. The first completed plane, a JetBlue A321, left the factory only in 2016 for the first time, but within 2 years the factory had produced 50 aircraft and could pump A320s out at a rate of 4 a month. Until now, the Airbus factory had been largely off limits to members of the public. Tours were restricted to industry insiders and media. However, Flightworks, which which is jointly funded by Airbus and the state of Alabama, is now coming to the party. According to the firm's information page, FlightWorks is running 4 tours of the Mobile factory from November the 14th. The tours will take 90 minutes and cost $23.50 per person.
That seems like an oddly specific dollar amount.
Number, isn't it? Absolutely. The tours are open to anyone, provided you can handle some stairs. So you'll be all right then, Steph. Me, not so much.
Nope.
While children are permitted, all adults must bring government-issued photo identification and undergo a quick security check. FlightWorks also notes that photography is not permitted inside the factory. Now, regular listeners to the show will know that many, many years ago, feels like many years ago, in fact, it appeared on episode 158, myself and Owen actually went to the Airbus factory in Toulouse, which was quite nice, and of course it was my tester flight, wasn't it, having just had some counselling from Captain Al. So there we go. Flying Solo. I still haven't found that bottle of red wine. I would like to find that again, a bottle of the Flying Solo, which I think was because I think if I remember correctly, where we stayed was literally behind the airport, so we really weren't very far away from it at all. And the tour of the factory was awesome. It was a real highlight. Really good fun.
Did you take pictures though?
No, you weren't allowed to take pictures.
It's just rubbish.
No, I know, but...
how boring.
Yeah, it was a great experience. I'd recommend it to anyone. What you need to do, Carlos, is you need to...
You have to go for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Indeed. I think that's the object of the exercise. It's highly recommended, and the best thing is that you can buy plastic models that claim to be A320s, but are in fact 737s, which we found in the shop, which was kind of amusing.
Only for 23, what was it, $23.50?
$23.50, yes.
That's cheap as chips.
Yes, that is trip. Yeah.
I have not.
Yeah.
Nope, I have not been.
Yeah. No, so you haven't
No, I haven't really done any aircraft manufacturers tours or anything. I've been up to Seattle for Boeing stuff. I have not been down to the Mobile, Alabama.
Well, there we are. So,
Steph.
well, what you need to do then is you need to do a special segment for PT UK and do just that. There you are.
I don't know. So Boeing has a assembly point for Dreamlifters here in South Carolina in Charleston. Wow. I don't know if they do tours or not. I'll have to look into it.
Well, yeah, but
that's about 3 hours from me.
You've got media credentials. You'll be
We are
true.
We are paying you enough, Steph.
Yeah.
I just need to throw like $1 million of my $6 million at them, and I'll get like all access behind the scenes, everything.
Okay. I still want to know how this was agreed. I don't know what's going on here.
Don't worry, Matt.
No, okay, right. Okay, just go back to sleep. Okay. Next story, Steph. Is for you. Yes.
Steph's going to the toilet for this next story.
Oh boy.
Wow.
Well, we'll keep it classy at least a little bit. So
yeah, keep it classy.
This is also from simpleflying.com. United Airlines opens the first class toilet for all passengers. Interesting. So starting November 1st, just this weekend, passengers traveling on United Airlines flights will be able to use the first class lavatory, regardless of which class they are traveling. In a memo to employees, the airline confirmed the change as a way to reduce queuing and crowding around the bathrooms. The memo, which has been shared on Twitter, continues to say that the cabin crew should ask passengers to please use the restroom located in your cabin when possible. However, when there is overcrowding of one restroom, passengers can move around the cabin to use a different toilet, even if it means passing from economy into first class. Previously, United passengers could only use bathrooms in their ticketed cabin. In a statement sent to Simple Flying, a spokesperson for the airline said, "The updated policy allows our flight attendants more flexibility to let customers use another lavatory during certain situations. That may include when there is a line for one lavatory, but not another, when the service card is in the aisle, etc. We'll continue to ask customers to use the lavatory in their cabin via an onboard announcement, but we've added when possible to the announcement in order to reflect the increased flexibility." Toilets or middle seats. The airline has said that this should reduce the number of people using the same restroom and prevent crowding and queuing in the aisles. However, the reality could be that people just start crowding the first class restroom instead. Several customers online are voicing concern that this will actually result in more people moving about the cabin. For many, the policy seems unnecessary considering that the airline doesn't block middle seats.
See, am I the only one sitting here thinking, well, what I would do is wait until all the others were crowded so that I ended up having to use the first class loo just because I keep it classy. If I'm going to use a loo on
I told you we were keeping it classy on this article.
I want to be in first class, baby, all the way.
You know, the lavatory is really not any different on any of those, most of those aircraft.
Oh, no, come on. It'll have better soap, if nothing else. Come on. Don't spoil the illusion.
Sorry.
They have
they
have the less cheap cologne in there for a start, surely.
There's lots of love for Nev in the chat room.
Oh, really?
Masha says Nev will be miffed. And Richard Adams says Nev will have to wait for a 1A wee-wee.
Right. Okay.
Anyway, one last paragraph here, I think. So according to the memo, they changed their policy based on feedback both from passengers and crew, and the question will be whether the change will continue after the pandemic subsides. Other airlines, such as American, have long allowed passengers to use whichever lavatory they choose. However, Delta Airlines restricts passengers to the toilet in their class. And sometimes I've heard it said especially on U.S. airlines, that it is due to FAA policy that passengers are restricted to the toilet in their ticketed class. And I tried to do a little bit of research on that to find where that actually says that. And I think it actually has more to do with something called the Cabin Safety Subject Index and how each airline has written their proposals for cabin safety to the FAA. So that could be why it's an individual airline.
Are you just not 100%? Are you 100% sure it's not just because those in first class don't want to mix with the unwashed in capital
I don't want
class?
to mix with the unwashed if I'm sitting up for it. No, I'm just kidding.
Not quite, absolutely. I mean, once one has tasted 1A, why would anyone?
Although I would argue that oftentimes it's kind of the reverse, because usually there's just one lavatory up front, but there might be, several rows of first class seats, and then you turn around and there's like 4 lavatories behind you, depending on what type of aircraft you're on, and like one of them is in use and there's 3 open ones. You're like, well, can I just go back there? But they put up a curtain in the way and all kinds of other stuff.
Taser electric fences and
yeah, it's just not allowed. Just keep with your own kind.
Absolutely,
and everything will be
stay with
very
your own
civil.
Kind. Yeah, absolutely. Keep it classy, ladies and gentlemen. Keep it classy.
Right. Keep it classy.
Indeed.
No, I think it's silly. Use whatever lavatory you want, please.
Right, absolutely. When one has to go, one has to go.
Yeah, why are you making people wait on that?
Don't use the outdoor lavatory, because
there's an outside lavatory.
Tricky.
It's also with the smoking section, yeah.
Oh, goodness me. Right. Okay. Moving on, gentlemen and ladies.
Oh, dear. Anyway, so the next story is, this is the last story in the commercial segment, and this one comes to us from samchewy.com, and we're heading to Russia for the next one. And I can see John's already got a smile on his face, bless him, with this story. And the headline, the last Tupolev Tu-154 flight in Russia. So today in Alrosa Airlines, Tupolev
Don't make him laugh, because he's just taking a mouthful of water. He's going to break his laptop.
Model. So yeah, today the Alrosa Airlines Tupolev Tu-154, a flagship model of the Soviet aviation, performed its last civil flight for the type in Russia. The 28-year-old aircraft with registration Romeo Alpha 85757, interesting number, took off from Nizhny Airport in Yakutia with 140 passengers for a flight of 2 hours to Novodersk Tomachevo Airport, like OVP. You could see his little face there. That's really annoying.
Was it you, Carlos, that was suggesting that that whoever butchers a pronunciation has to take a drink? Yeah.
The Tu-154's last flight was operated by a very experienced crew. The cockpit crew was composed of Captain Alexander Leshkiev, First Officer Nikolai Vereshkyov, Instructor Igor Kantares, and onboard engineer Mikhail Boganov.
Do you know what the worst thing about all this is? Is John very kindly got a very lovely friend of his who actually speaks Russian. She speaks Russian. Right, okay. No. Okay. Yes, I'm going to bring your fader down there so that he doesn't get harmed. Yeah, lovely.
According to the Alrosa CEO, Audrey Gulov, the aircraft's airworthiness certificate expires very soon. I'm not surprised. These aircraft are really old. After decommissioning, the 3-engine medium-haul aircraft will remain at Novodersk Airport until a decision. Do you know, Russian is one of those languages I'd love to be able to speak. Anyway, it can be
not like that, you don't.
The Tu-154's first flight took place on October the 3rd, 1968. Blimey, Matt, we were not about then. It was entered into operation for Aeroflot on the February the 9th, 1972. Blimey, we still weren't around then, Matt. The aircraft was produced until 2013, and 1,026 were built.
And Andrew van der Saga said, "Don't worry, their replacements burn less vodka."
It is very true, actually. If you've seen one of those taking off from the from a runway, yeah. According to the Aviation Safety Network, this type of aircraft has suffered 73 accidents, resulting in the deaths of... Really? Wow. According to the Aviation Safety Network, this type of aircraft has suffered 73 accidents, resulting in the deaths of 3,095 people.
It's being retired, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, excellent.
I don't think it's this specific. I don't think it's this very plane. I don't think.
Well,
not this very plane, but the 154. This is this
type,
aircraft.
yeah.
Is this aircraft's fairly similar to the 727 in its sort of kind of style and size.
Yes,
the
the 727.
and a
Ski.
T-tail.
I should just stress, legally different.
But it's very different indeed. Yeah, but I do you know what? For all the bad press these aircraft get, the Tupolev aircraft get, you know, I've flown on the 134 many years ago, and I'll tell you what, it is testament to how these aircraft are built, because they've lasted quite a long while as passenger aircraft.
Lane Street has suggested that it was in fact the 727 ski.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Indeed.
But no, they've lasted well. They've done well. Let's be honest. They've done well, guys and girls. These aircraft. But yeah, I think airlines like Aeroflot in Russia now have started buying a lot more Boeing and Airbus products now.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as you know, less patents, I suppose, are broken if they do it that way.
Any other Russian air? John's asking me, have I ever flown on any other Russian aircraft? No, the 134 was the only one, or 134A was the only aircraft, Russian passenger aircraft that I flew on as a youngster, which was is like a Mad Dog. Yeah, it's a twin engine, rear engine mounted engines on that on the 134, and yeah. Ex-converted bomber, I will say, the 134 was.
Yeah. Oh, how lovely.
Yeah, back in the day.
That sounds very swanky.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to see that they've lasted the time, but they're being retired. I would imagine there'll probably be some of these end up in a museum somewhere in Russia.
Have I flown on any Russian aircraft? No, I have not.
There we are.
But if she did, she would take a parachute with her.
Right.
Might not be a bad idea.
Given those 3,000 plus deaths, or yes,
I can't believe that is incredible.
Quite a bit.
Yeah,
seems very high,
doesn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, but perhaps we're the only ones that know about those numbers, which is why people were still willing to get on them. I don't know. You know, not that there's any sort of, you know. Yeah, I'm being a little controversial. I'll shut up, shall I? Okay, good, lovely. Next.
Anyway, we're gonna hand
before I end up in, you know, Salisbury or wherever it was and get poisoned.
Do you want me to do this, Matt? Or are you okay?
Yeah, no. Was it Salisbury? No, where was it? Salford? No, where was it?
So for those of you
Sanford?
who watched the
no, it wasn't Siberia. No, where was the poisoning? Somebody tell me where the poisoning was.
Oh God, let's just get off the poisoning. Look, let's just drink beer.
Okay, all right, yeah, okay, yeah. It's like that AA advert, isn't it? It's like, Dad, I'm not helping much, am I?
No.
No, okay. Yeah, it was Salisbury. Good. Okay, I was busy.
Anyway,
yeah.
Before the chat room goes into meltdown about Salisbury,
Okay.
we are going to move on now to the next part of the show, which is a very welcome return back to the Plain Truths. For those of you who've been missing the Plain Truths, we're back. And this week, Matt put David Kavanagh's question to Captain Al. And he was reading an article about an ATSB report where a pilot's attempt to avoid overspeed resulted in crew members getting hurt. So this week, Matt asks the resident expert, what is overspeed?
Hello and welcome to another Plain Truths, and this week we're going to be talking about overspeed. Joining me, as always, is the legend that is Captain Al. Hi, Captain Al.
Hello to you, and thanks for having me back.
Always a pleasure, never a chore, as they say. Right. Now, listen, we've been contacted by one of our listeners, David Kavanagh, and he shared with me an article about overspeed, and it involved. I'll give you a rough summary. Basically, it was a pilot was avoiding overspeed, trying to avoid overspeed, led to a crew member breaking their leg. An ATSB report finds, and his question really was, what is overspeed? And how would that cause something like what we read in this article about basically somebody getting badly hurt?
Okay, so this is aerodynamically quite a complex question, so we'll keep it fairly straightforward. So when an aeroplane is flying, there are an area where it's basically of speed that it's safe to fly. If you become below this speed, then aerodynamically the wing will stall. So it's not an engine stall, it's not like your car engine stalling. It just in simple terms means that the wing is no longer producing lift.
Right.
And it is the lift that keeps the aeroplane in the sky. So basically the air over the surface of the wing isn't traveling fast enough to produce the lift to keep the weight of the aircraft in the sky. Now, it gets a bit complex because it's all to do with angle of attack rather than speed. And you will hear angle of attack or alpha mentioned from time to time. And that is the critical thing rather than speed, because speed varies with weight, whereas the alpha is a much more simplistic scale to determine, but actually quite complex in detail. At the other end of the spectrum, if an aeroplane goes too fast, then it will start to experience other undesirable aerodynamic effects. So quite clearly at the low end of the spectrum, if the aeroplane goes too slow and falls out of the sky, that's not good. At the high speed end, as we get faster and faster and we start to approach supersonic speed, in an aeroplane that's not designed to go supersonic, undesirable aerodynamic effects start to happen. And this was kind of experienced, Captain Nick might correct me on this, but sort of during the Second World War, when pilots were starting to get things like Spitfires near supersonic speed in the descent. So they were diving down, getting towards supersonic speed, and the aeroplane was sort of pitching more and more forward, despite the fact that they wanted to pull out of the dive, and the aeroplane would just sort of unfortunately go straight into the ground. So we're not going to get into heavy aerodynamics, but there is a relatively small speed range for which the aeroplane should be safely operated. So if you overspeed the aeroplane, which is most likely to happen in the descent, and indeed this was the case with the Virgin Australia, the crew were asked by air traffic control to keep a high rate of descent, a high speed up. And as the aeroplane started to approach the upper end of the safe speed regime, so it was approaching the overspeed,
Right.
the autopilot would deal with this. However, in this particular case, the captain felt that the autopilot wasn't dealing with it, and he felt the need to intervene. Pause, semicolon, new paragraph. Matt, are you a roller coaster kind of person?
Me personally, no, I can't think of anything worse, I have to be honest. I'm
Right.
more of
I thought that might be the case. Have you ever been on one?
Yes, I have, mostly under duress and being forced by my now ex-friends. But yes, I have been on one.
So I want you to, without too much trauma, imagine, your bog standard sort of Big Dipper light roller coaster. So you trundle up to the top of the hill,
Yep.
and then you go down the hill, and usually then you go back up a hill, yeah?
Yeah.
So as you're going downhill quite fast, and you reach that point where the roller coaster is starting to climb back up again, can you remember what happens to your body when that's happening?
Well, I mean, it's sort of thrown all over the place. It's that lurching feeling, isn't it, as it switches from going down to going up.
As the roller coaster starts to go back up the hill, you start to encounter positive G. So you're forced back down into your seat, aren't you?
Yes.
So when the captain decided to intervene by pulling out of the dive, as it were, that's exactly what he did. So he introduced quite a large amount of positive G. And with it being a 737, so conventional, no fly-by-wire, the harder you pull, more G. And that's unfortunately what caused the cabin crew member to become unstable on his or her feet, thereby breaking the leg. So his fear was overspeeding the aeroplane, which is justified. What he did, we're not going to, question his actions, if you like. But what he was preventing is the aeroplane overspeeding, because we don't want to take it into the area called transonic, which is the transition into supersonic, because we just don't want the aeroplane to go into that unstable state where it would probably start to nose further forward. So regardless of the fact that you're pulling back, it's almost like the controls are reversed and the aeroplane is going further and further nose down.
Oh, wow.
And that's not nice.
No, absolutely. And obviously potentially very catastrophic.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have various indications on the flight deck to alert us of this. So as we're talking about an old-style aeroplane like the 737, at the low end of the speed scale, as we approach that point where the wing starts to aerodynamically stall, we have a couple of things. So we have a stick shaker. So the yoke will actually be physically shaken by a mechanical motor. So that's an alerting device. And then if we still haven't actually rectified the speed issue, eventually something called stick push will kick in, which will actually physically push the stick forward. The idea being, of course, that if you push the nose forward or push the stick forward, the nose will go down, thereby increase the speed and stop the aerofoil from stalling. At the other end of the speed scale, at the high speed scale, we have something called the barber's pole. It's a red and white pointer on the airspeed indicator. Now, depending on your altitude, determines where that pointer is. So it's a movable feast, if you like. So this is where it gets a bit complicated, because the higher you go, the less in knots the airspeed indicator will read, but then you start to get into Mach numbers. But basically, wherever you happen to be, there will be this red and white pointer. Now, aeroplanes need to operate at the highest altitude possible for efficiency, and the higher we go, the thinner the air gets. So therefore, there's less air to hold us up, if you like. And because of that, the gap between our lowest safe speed and our highest safe speed is relatively small. And it's an area called coffin corner, because the higher you go, the smaller the margins get. Now,
right.
It may well be that the gap between low speed and high speed is only, 10 or 15 knots. So there isn't a lot of speed to play with up there.
No.
Now, it may be necessary to be up that high because you might need to be up there because of other traffic or weather beneath you. But if you're encountering any turbulence at high altitude, you may want to descend to increase the margin between your low speed and your high speed.
Wow. So, I mean, again, lots of really interesting elements to this for me. And so really, I don't want to go into too much detail on the article, essentially, but there must be a reason why the pilot... Does the autopilots occasionally get it wrong then? I mean, it's that... I'm not quite sure why he would take it out of autopilot.
So in answer to your question, it's an interesting one. A lot of us have got used to having cruise control on our cars. And then in recent years, we've had adaptive cruise control, where the car will use some form of radar to monitor the gap between you and the car in front. So even though we've set, say, for example, 70 miles an hour on the cruise control, if we're catching the car or vehicle in front of us up, we will start to slow down automatically to maintain that gap.
Yeah.
Now, I had a car that did that, and it would control the speed all the way down to a safe stop. Now, it takes a lot of courage of conviction to sit there as you're approaching a stationary traffic jam ahead and allow the car to come to a stop, knowing full well that it's going to judge the distance quite accurately.
Yeah, having full faith in the equipment, essentially, yeah.
Yeah. So the key thing here is, like any other piece of automation, it can go wrong. So if you think that it's not doing what it should do, the golden word is intervene. How you intervene is very much a function of where you've got yourself into. So if you think that the greatest risk is the aeroplane going transonic and then, diving spectacularly, uncontrollably to the ground, then maybe your best strategy is to pull out of that dive. Everybody's kind of squashed into their seats and you have a small amount of collateral damage. So, yes, just like any other piece of technology, it can go wrong. And as you push it to the limits, if you like, then potentially the time that you have to assess whether it is doing what it's supposed to do or not becomes less.
Yeah.
So the way that you descend the aeroplane sometimes can be quite close to the high-speed awareness. Now, as you're coming down into thicker air, you're less worried so much about going supersonic as you were, because that's not really going to happen, because the lower down you get, the less likely that is in a passenger transport aircraft. So that's not really the risk. It's just generally bits flying off the aeroplane because it's not designed to go that fast. But the big consideration close to the ground is hitting something. So we talked in a previous episode about wildlife strikes. So the faster you're going, the more damage something will do if you hit it.
Right, yes. Basic rule of thumb, as they say. Well,
yes, and it's exponential. So it's a factor of 2. So it's not a linear thing, it's exponential. Yeah. So it's a factor of 2. So
absolutely. Well, Al, thank you very much for covering that subject. And hopefully, David, you have all the answers there that you need. But for now, Captain Al, thank you.
It's a pleasure.
If you want to take your knowledge to the next level, sign up for a subscription at the A320 Lounge. Our online video courses combine whiteboard-style lessons with full failure demonstrations shot in 4K in state-of-the-art simulators using a professional production team. Go into your next simulator session with confidence, having seen failures run in real time and with the background knowledge to answer any questions from your instructor. To get more information and to sign up, visit a320lounge.com.
Oh, it's been so nice to have the Plain Truth back. Thank you, Captain Al, as always, for joining me in doing those. And genuinely, if anybody has any questions that they'd like Captain Al to give you the answers on, do like what David Kavanagh did. Get in touch with the show, podcast at plaintalkinguk.com. Or in fact, in David's case, he actually sent us a message within Facebook Messenger. And as soon as we get the details, I've got hopefully in a couple of weeks, we've got another recording session set up with Al. So if there's anything you would like the answer to, then make sure you get in touch. As I say, podcast at plaintalkinguk.com.
Any sneak peeks, Matt? What next week's about?
You're relying on me having a memory there. That's probably your first flaw. But I'm sure John will be able to remind me of some of the subject matters that we've got engine failures is one of them.
Oh, blimey.
Yeah, fuel issues. We've also got pilot and crew hours as well. That's another subject that I was quite interested in. So a few more to look forward to coming up soon. But yes, as I say, please do get in touch with your suggestions, and then Captain Al will answer your questions in a forthcoming Plain Truth.
Excellent. So we're going to move on then with the next part of the show. And he's not here, but we've got some stories obviously put together by Armando and the team. So we're going to do some military news if everyone is ready.
Ready.
And the first military story is with me, and it is from the Where TV. Sorry, we are. I was going to say anyway. The headline is: the Navy identified the 2 pilots killed in Friday's tragic plane crash in Foley. So, U.S. Navy Lieutenant Rhiannon Ross of Wixom, Michigan, and U.S. Coast Guard Ensign Morgan Garrett of Weddington, North Carolina, were identified.
Actually, that's very close to me. But
is it?
Yeah, so
really?
it made big news here.
Big news, I bet. Anyway, they were identified as the service members who died in the crash. 30-year-old Ross, an instructor pilot, and 24-year-old Garrett, a student aviator, took off from the Naval Air Station Whiting, or is it Whiting or Whiting? I'll say Whiting Field. Apologies.
I probably should know, and I have no
we'll
idea.
say Whiting Field in Milton, Florida, on a routine training flight when their plane crashed around 5 p.m. on Friday, the 23rd of October. The Navy Times reported Ensign Garrett graduated from the US Coast Guard Academy in 2019 and majored in marine and environmental sciences. Garrett was a regimental activities officer at the academy and competed as a middle distance runner in track and field. Heartbreaking doesn't really quite capture the emotion behind it. To know that those officers, friends and shipmates of ours aren't going to be there when we look for them on Monday is very difficult. They'll be dearly missed, said Commander Zachary Harrell, who's the Naval Air Force's public affairs officer. Their spirit, friendship and devotion to their country will not be forgotten. So the VT2 Doer Birds released the following statement on Facebook. So the Doer Birds and supporters, it is with a heavy heart that I share the loss of 2 of our squadron members Friday evening, Lieutenant Rhiannon Ross and Ensign Morgan Garrett. During a training mission, their T-6B crashed into a residential area near Foley. We are thankful no one on the ground was injured, but sadly neither crew member survived. Our sincerest condolences and prayers go out to the family members who have suffered this tremendous loss. I cannot express the devastation we all feel at this time. I'd like to personally thank all of the support we've received from family, friends and colleagues from all over. I encourage everyone to take care of each other and the families directly affected by this tragedy as we navigate through the healing process. Sincerely, Wes Barnes, VT2 Co. I mean, these stories are never, they're always so sad, aren't they? It's just, well, it is what it is, isn't it, at the end of the day?
So the aircraft they're in, the T6 Texan, it's a trainer. It's the trainer aircraft used by the US Air Force. It's also used by the Royal Canadian Air Force as well, and also the Greek Hellenic Air Force. But came into service in 2001, this aircraft, but it's a very, very well-proven training aircraft, the T6.
So the picture we're looking at the moment on screen is Lieutenant Rhiannon Ross, and the picture just before it, Ensign Morgan Garrett. Very sad indeed.
Yeah, definitely very sad. I haven't heard any more about potential cause or anything like that, but
well, I guess that'll all be to come.
Much
later.
later.
For the moment,
Sure.
let's concentrate on those who are grieving at the moment, and
exactly.
Thoughts and condolences to everyone involved, obviously.
So the next story, moving on, this one is on the military.com website. Air Force delays moving forward with the E-4B Doomsday plane replacement effort. So the US Air Force is delaying the official solicitation for its E-4B Night Watch replacement, citing a new acquisition strategy approach. In an update last week, the service said it recently classified its Survivable Airborne Operations Center, or SAOC, weapon system program intended to replace the infamous nuclear command and control aircraft, commonly known as the Doomsday plane, as an acquisition Category 1D program. That category covers major procurements, typically costing billions of dollars. The declassification requires a defense acquisition executive who reports to the defense or deputy defense secretary to oversee the program. Because of the change, the request E4 proposal, originally planned for release in December 2020, is delayed, according to the pre-solicitation notice. The service said additional timeline details would be forthcoming. Last December, Congress authorized $16.6 million for the SAOC's research and development. The Air Force and Navy, which oversees the E-6B Mercury fleet, a companion aircraft to the E-4B, want to consolidate the two aircraft's missions. The E-4B, known as the National Airborne Operations Center, can be used by the President and Defense Secretary to execute operations in the event of a nuclear war. The E-6B, Looking Glass aircraft, serves as an airborne communications relay between the Pentagon's National Command Authority and U.S. nuclear submarine, bomber, and missile forces. The Navy keeps 16 E-6B aircraft, which are based on a commercial Boeing 707 and began flying in the early 1990s. The Air Force has 4 E-4Bs, which are modified versions of the Boeing 747 and have been in service since the 1970s. Traditionally used by the Defense Secretaries for transport around the world, the aging Night Watch had to ditch that secondary mission because too many E-4Bs required maintenance, according to a report from Defense One. The website noted that the E-4B and the two planes used by the President are amongst the oldest 747-200s still flying. Wow. Small fleets are a drain on the service because they drive up operational costs, according to a 2019 report. The Air Force of the Future, a comparison of alternative force structures by Todd Harrison, director of the Aerospace Security Project at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. The problem that the Air Force has right now, which is making its operating costs so much higher, is because they have so many small fleets, he said. The E-4B was built to withstand an electromagnetic pulse in the event of a nuclear blast. The Air Force is hoping for the same hardened architecture in its replacement. In the case of national emergency or destruction of ground or command control centers, the SAOC aircraft will provide a highly survivable command, control, and communications platform to direct U.S. forces, execute emergency war orders, and coordinate actions by civil authorities, according to the service's initial notice posted last December. Now, do we honestly? I'm hoping we don't have any wars between now and the end of days. But do we need all this sort of kind of stuff really?
I guess.
I mean, better to be prepared.
I suppose, yeah. In case some crazy, someone comes up from somewhere. Well, I think there's more on people's plate these days with with COVID-19, and then of course today we had that terrible earthquake in Turkey as well. I think people have got enough on their plate at the moment without worrying about wars anywhere. Although there are wars still going on, I suppose. But yeah. So moving on to the next story, something more cheery, and Matt. You've got a story on the Marine Corps saying...
No, you skipped mine.
I don't think so.
Oh, where am I? Sorry, Steph. Sorry. Actually, no, Steph. Sorry,
mild panic there set in. Sorry.
I hit the...
That's all right. I'm here to set Carlos straight as well. It's fine.
If you hit the space bar, the page goes all the way down to the bottom on one note.
That's it. Right. Okay. We'll blame the keyboard then.
Well, anyway,
and not the operator.
This is
okay. Good.
Quite a cheerful story and one I enjoyed quite much. Anyway, this is from CBSNews.com, and the headline is 102-year-old World War II veteran checks skydiving off her bucket list. So a World War II veteran was honored in her hometown on Thursday. For more than a century, she has never stopped reaching new heights. Millie Bailey said she always wanted to go skydiving, and she recently checked that off her bucket list at the age of 102. When asked what it was like to jump out of an airplane, Bailey responded, "It was great. At one point, the wind had gotten pretty strong, and I was tumbling, and I felt like I was by myself. I wondered where the paratrooper had gone." She called it the thrill of a lifetime that's been full of thrills. One of the biggest, she said, was meeting former President Barack Obama, who honored her military service. In World War II, she joined the Women's Army Corps, rising to unit commander, and was one of only 2 African-American women in her class at the I don't even know how to pronounce that, Adjutant General School. She retired from government service 45 years ago. CBS News asked Bailey, "Did you slow down when you retired?" Not really, she replied. Bailey enjoyed one more thrill. A park in Columbia, Maryland was named for her in honor of her devotion to serving others. Having conquered skydiving, she now has her sights set on the next big thrill. She says, I would still like to meet Michelle Obama. That would take the last thing off my bucket list.
Mm. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe it's good to at least have one thing left on your bucket list.
Always have one thing left on your bucket list.
Always have one thing.
If your bucket list is
empty, then it's, think, right, well, that's it. That's me done then. Yes, I'm 102. Exactly. I'm done now. Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, it's just such a great video, isn't it? It's a real make you feel warm and fuzzy inside.
I think you always
she's braver than me.
You always associate skydiving with young people like Dr. Steph. But I mean, obviously, Steph, you do skydiving quite often. Is there are there a lot of kind of nannies and granddads who
so there's definitely a segment of older folks who come out and jump, and some of them are sport jumpers still, so jumping individually, 60s, 70s, that certainly happens, and a fair number of much more elderly folks who come out to do a tandem skydive like this lady.
Wow, that's so good.
Wow. No.
Matt, I think you should have a go. The deadly silence.
It was quite silent there.
One day,
we know a couple people around the PTUK environment who could help facilitate that.
One day, I shall go to Matt. I'll say, Matt, here we go. Have this glass of milk. Just drink this milk, will you, Matt? And then
I ain't getting no plane, fool.
Next thing you know, Matt will be.
Yeah, apparently I'm going to be drugged, ladies and gentlemen. That's essentially what's going to happen here. Yeah,
that's all right, John. Don't worry. An astute tandem master will not allow that to happen.
It worked for BA. Come on.
Right. Okay. Lovely. I have no words for you, Carlos. I'll be brutally honest.
We'll talk about this later, John. Yeah.
Will we heckers like? Moving on.
Anyway, super cool lady. Definitely sounds like someone I'd like to aspire to.
Indeed. Yeah, absolutely. On to the last story then. And this is on the MarineCorpsTimes.com website. And the headline is Marine Corps say goodbye to the Super Cobra. Sorry, what?
Corps.
It says it's got corpse written down here.
You were given a pronunciation guide.
There's in red.
Oh, there's a pronunciation guide that I didn't bother with. So it's core. Okay, lovely. Okay. Right. Okay. So okay, we'll pretend that never happened, shall we? It's all right. I'll fix it in post. It's fine.
So, Matt, what's going on with the Marine Corps?
I no longer care. Sorry, it's so the MarineCorpsTimes.com and the head. I'm not doing it on purpose now. I'm just going to keep doing it on purpose. The Marine Corps says goodbye to the Super Cobra. Sorry, I shouldn't be laughing because it's a very sad story. With its final flight over the New Orleans skyline, the Corps said goodbye to the historic AH-1W Super Cobra after 34 years of service as the Corps go to attack helicopter. The first Super Cobras were delivered to the Corps. Why has it got a P on it? Anyway, on the March 27th, 1986. And during the next 13 years, the Corps built up a fleet of 179 of the Bell manufactured attack helicopters. A press release from Bell said Super Cobras racked up 933,614 flight hours since it first hit the fleet, deploying with the Marines all around the globe. The Marine Corps has operated in future. Don't put the P in because I'll just keep reading it out. Has operated the Whiskey since the early 90s, operating them in operation with Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom. They did the Gulf War. They did Eyes Over somewhere I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce. Mogadishu, sorry, okay, and in Somalia. They operated the MEUs across the globe. Lieutenant Colonel Charles Daniel, the executive officer for the Marine Light Attack Helicopter Squadron 773, said in a video from the Marine Corps. So the final Super Cobra to fly in the Marine Corps belonged to the reserve HMLA-773 based out of New Orleans, according to the Marine Corps releases on the Defense Visual Information Distribution Service. The aircraft hit the unit from the Bell factory in 1994 and deployed to Afghanistan with the unit from 2003 to 2005. Major Patrick Richardson, the active duty component executive officer for the HMLA-773, said in the video, Richardson has the honour of being the last Marine to pilot the Super Cobra, with Daniel acting as his co-pilot. Captain Joseph Butterfield, a Marine Corps spokesman, told Marine Corps Times on Monday. Yeah. Right, okay, I'm being told apparently it arrives from the Latin. Yeah, just FYI, anyone, if you want me to say that right, don't put the P on, because all I see is the P. This is a Marine Corps, everyone.
Just stop peeing.
I believe you're trainable there. We can figure it out.
Trainable?
Over time, yes.
People have been trying for years, Steph, no chance.
Now, Matt, you've got the picture of the helicopter on. You've put the picture up on there, the helicopter on his story. The AH-1. Now, whenever I see that helicopter, all I can think about...
Richard Adams says corpse is okay for Halloween. Good point.
...is Blue Thunder. Now, you've got to go back to the 80s for that, but the series Blue Thunder that used to be on TV...
No, never seen it.
You had Airwolf, and you had...
Yeah, no, I remember Airwolf.
Airwolf was always the most popular one. Everyone knew Airwolf. And there's also the Blue Thunder series, and that helicopter always reminds me of Blue Thunder.
Yeah. I have nothing to compare it with. I've never. Have you seen Blue Thunder, Steph?
Steph's way too young to know that.
Right. Okay. And I'm presuming producer
I
John
literally have no idea what you guys are talking about anymore.
Okay,
so
fair enough. Yes. No. Fair. Yeah. That seems fair. Yeah. And as I'm not even going to ask John, because you know. Oh! John has seen it. Oh, well, there we are. Okay. Lovely.
No, they done some various spin-offs and stuff. I forget who the main character was in that now. That was quite a well-known cat.
Right, okay. Yeah, John is saying that he saw a film, basically, that he thought it was a film. I don't know. Anyway, there we go. Carlos?
I'm intrigued now. I'm just trying to remember who.
Why don't you Google it during the next bit?
Frank Murphy, yeah.
Yeah, can we get on with the show?
Blue Thunder was really. Blue Thunder was 1983. That was well done, and it starred someone.
Anyone in the show notes? Just out of interest. Anyone reading the show notes? No.
Matt, you remember the film Jaws?
No, I don't.
Do you remember Roy Schneider?
Yes, I remember Roy Scheider.
Yeah. He was the guy in Blue Thunder. Yeah.
Okay,
We've got that sorted now. We're done.
Okay, lovely. Yeah. Anyway, on to listener feedback.
I'm still lost. I don't know what. Yeah. Anyway.
For the last time of asking politely, listener feedback, please, Carlos.
So, over the last few weeks, we've been playing some listener feedbacks that were all from the competition that we set a while back from the Plane Reclaimers. So if you've not heard of them or seen what they do, don't forget to check out episode 324, where we had Andrew on as a guest on the show, Andrew Keegan from the Plane Reclaimers. But we had the competition, and we asked you to send in aviation in your live stories. We've been playing some out. We've still got a few left, and this week's entry has come from Jacob Darlington Brown. Aviation in My Life by Jacob Darlington Brown. I grew up on the south coast of New South Wales, about 2 hours south of Sydney, but more importantly, only 30 minutes north of HMAS Albatross, which is the main naval air station for the Royal Australian Navy. I remember going to air shows there back in the 90s as a kid, watching the planes and absolutely loving it. We also used to spend many weekends down in Jervis Bay, which is just to the east of the airbase, and we used to sit on the beach and watch the New Zealand Air Force A4 Skyhawks run low-level practice missions. Often we would be sitting on the beach or in our boat, and away off in the distance we would hear the scream of the jet engines approaching, and sure enough, Two of the A4s would come overhead so we could almost touch them as they blasted overhead during a practice run or something. I can still remember feeling our whole body shaking with the sound of the engines blasting what felt like only feet above our head, and watching them dance away the sky as we waved from below. Anyway, fast forward 15 years and many air shows later, I was working in an office job in Sydney, blissfully unaware that flying was something mere mortals could do. Until for some reason I decided to look up my local airfield, which was Bankstown Airport, and the first flight school that came up was an aerobatic flight school that flew Robins 2160s, which are a two-seat bubble canopy aerobatic plane with a centre stick controller like a fighter jet rather than a yoke. And they were the coolest looking plane that I could imagine to fly, as they were also painted up to look like the Red Baron. Needless to say, I called them up, and a few months later I started my GFPT, which at the time was something similar to a recreational pilot's license that only gave me the ability to fly the Robins in the circuit and to and from the local training area, but most importantly I could go and fly aerobatics, which was all I really wanted to do. Like most of us, as soon as I took control of the plane for the first time, I was hooked, and rather than just getting my GFPT, over the next 4 years I slowly got my PPL, CPL and MECIR, and finally quit my office job and brought a one-way ticket to the top end of Australia in search of my first aviation job. At this stage I was 26, married, and had a 1-year-old boy who stayed in Sydney while I gallivanted across the country looking for work as a pilot. A quick side note about the industry here. It is completely unheard of to go straight from a flight school into the right-hand seat of a jet like you guys in Europe do. There are 1 or 2 regional airlines that have small cadetship programs, but they only fly small turboprops, and even so their cadets can only make up a small percentage of pilots. 99% of flight school graduates have to find a job flying small GA aircraft like Piper Warriors and Cessna 172s and 182s doing scenic flights, flying the post or instructing. I ended up finding a job flying a Piper Warrior in a country town in New South Wales, which coincidentally is the same town that the giant satellite dish that received the TV signal from the moon for the Apollo 11 mission when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walked on the moon. Flying over that dish was amazing, as it is huge, but more on that another time I think. The plane I ended up flying was a 1979 clapped-out PA-28 with its back 2 seats removed that we filled with freight. I then became a part-time pilot and part-time courier, as I spent the next 8 months flying from one town to another and delivering post to all the businesses out in these small country towns. Eventually, I moved on to flying more freight, but this time in a Piper Chieftain, which is a light twin-engined aircraft, and then moved on to fly the same aircraft type that the great Bob Hoover flew when he did his amazing air shows, the Shrike Aero Commander. These I flew, I guess, the equivalent distance of London to Aberdeen and back every single day, single pilot, IFR, stopping 6 times on my way out and 6 times on my way back in. It was awesome flying, going from the beautiful east coast of Australia right into the desert of the outback and everything in between. And by this time, aviation had definitely gotten into my blood. The people, the planes, and the amazing views. And by this stage I had 2 kids, and my love of aviation had definitely infected both my boys. Even my wife was starting to catch the aviation bug. Eventually, after flying a few years of singles and light twin piston engine aircraft around, I made the move to an airline, and I now fly a Saab 340 turboprop, a beautiful 34-seat commuter type aircraft out of Sydney, and the love for aviation grows more and more and more that I hang around. I would have to say one of the best parts is that from the ground handlers to the pilots and even the guys taking photos at the viewing points at all the airports, almost everyone is here because they love the industry, and we all share that love of flying. A love that for most of us started at a young age, like it did with me, watching the A4 Skyhawks blast overhead when I was 8 years old. I'm not even quarter of the way through my flying career, but all the stand-downs and furloughs that have happened because of COVID-19 have really made me reappreciate how lucky we all are to be part of this great industry. Whether we're pilots, cabin crew, or even just aviation enthusiasts, who happen to start one of the best aviation podcasts, mind you. I love how it all just feels like one big weird family. I now have 3 kids, all of which have now caught the aviation bug, especially my 1-year-old daughter. Every time a plane flies over our house on its way into or out of Sydney Airport, she cranks her head skyward and waves bye-bye at all the planes. It wouldn't surprise me if she could say the word plane before she could say the word mum or dad. Anyway, that's just a brief overview of how aviation has become such a big part of my life. I'll include as well some photos for Matt to put up if he can show you some of the reasons why I love this job so much. I hope you enjoy them as much as I do. All the best, guys, and keep the podcast going. I've been listening since the beginning of 2014. I'm yet to tire of it. Love your work. Jacob, aka Noose and SW Aviation on Instagram.
I like he gave himself a little plug on Instagram. Good work, everyone. Very good. That was a really great story. Thank you very much.
What a nice kind of progression from, start to finish. Even with having children and stuff, he still managed to, to fulfill his dream, I suppose.
It's just so... this is the thing that will always blow my mind. It's just so expensive, isn't it? There is no cheap way of flying and learning to fly. And
if you mention the word aviation,
and
very expensive.
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely. Very, very large dollar signs and exclamation marks aplenty. Yes.
Plus, Jacob gets to fly in some very nice parts of the world.
True, absolutely true, absolutely true. Now you've got a box there, Steph, that you were just what are you doing?
Steph.
They had a little pause there while that segment was playing, and there was a package at the door.
Oh, a delivery. Oh, I see. Oh,
yeah,
right. Oh,
yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting all excited.
Something aviation related.
Yeah,
no. Actually, I think it's stuff for my. It should be camera stuff for my phone. Actually,
there we go.
So, Steph, we've got you on the show, and obviously, you're having a bit of a break from the other show that you've left now, because obviously you've joined PTUK.
was that also in the contract? I don't remember reading that when I signed it for my salary.
We have to check these contracts in future, I think. Yeah.
But Steph, you've been doing some flying recently. Obviously, I think you've been up a few times with, you've been flying in the same vicinity as Armando a few times. But how's the flying going? What you've been up to?
Flying's been going very well. I think since the last time I really talked to y'all, it's just kind of funny how these things happen sometimes. It's the right connection, right places, right times. It's certainly not something you expect to end up doing a bunch more of during a pandemic, but been with one of the local drop zones doing a whole bunch of flying of skydivers. They kind of took me under their wing and did a fair amount of training in terms of getting current in some turbine aircraft, primarily our Quest Kodiak, and a couple other ones probably in the near future here as well. So lots and lots of flying this summer, actually, most every weekend, in terms of getting out there, actually flying the jumpers, and then doing studying and all that other good stuff for the actual aircraft, which has been a ton of fun. I was actually very, very busy for a couple of weeks there during the summer, basically work all day during the week, or work every day during the week, and then fly jumpers all day during the weekends. So it's like working 7 days a week, basically. Although the flying jumpers part was a lot more fun than my day job, I will say.
I can imagine.
But yeah, Armando's not here today, but where he is and where I am, we both fly for local drop zones, and we're about 40 miles apart from each other. So it's pretty funny on the weekends, because usually the initial air traffic control facility that we call up in Charlotte, we call up the same frequency. So oftentimes we'll hear each other talking to air traffic control, which is kind of fun. So he knows when I'm flying, I know when he's out flying, and kind of what's going on there. What else?
So what's it like, Steph, flying the Kodiak? Because I know that's quite a popular plane out in the US. It's also, I think it's a 4-bladed, constant speed, feathering, reversible.
You did your homework on the
Yeah.
Kodiak. Sure.
I actually follow someone on YouTube who flies, a bush pilot who flies one of these.
So they're really very popular for bush flying, a lot more than most other types of flying. You'll find them occasionally as jump planes and other kind of corporate, really short kind of distance, or maybe people who have their own private one if they have, some remote areas that they fly into for personal property type stuff, if they have remote cabins and things like that. But yeah, definitely a very capable aircraft. It's got the PT6A34 in it. I think it's a lot of fun to fly for a jump plane. It's a relatively new one, and it's got a lot of fancy avionics that don't often come in jump planes. So that's always kind of funny. Most jump planes are on the older side. They've had, they've been repurposed into second or third life down the road from their original mission. So they usually are, various hodgepodge or patchwork of different avionics and things that have been put in, taken out over time. This one is, Garmin G1000 screens and autopilot that works. It feels it'll spoil you in a hurry as a jump plane, but it's a lot of fun to fly.
Compare that to the Caravan, which you obviously fly as well. What would you?
Yeah, so actually, I don't have a ton of Caravan time. There was one at the drop zone a couple years back when I started jumping there that I had a few hours of right seat time in, and they've actually just brought one back. So, I mean, probably like 6 or 8 hours total in the right seat of a Caravan. No, they're both great aircraft to fly. They fly very similarly, I would say, in terms of their capabilities and characteristics and all of that. So I don't know that I have a preference between those two. We have our drop zone has a Twin Otter as well, which is quite the airplane to fly.
So Steph, you were chatting earlier with us and saying about some nighttime flying that you might be possibly doing. Yeah,
so every once in a while, drop zones will offer night jumps for qualified jumpers. So the requirement here in the United States is there's 4 different categories of, or actually there's plenty more than that, but skydiving license to start with an A license, then a B license, C license, D license as you do more jumps and have more training and things along those lines. So if you are a B licensed skydiver, you can participate in night jumps. So the requirements being that you make a jump at the drop zone during daylight hours on that day, and then obviously after the sun sets, after dusk, make a night jump. And you have to have...
I can't imagine how difficult it must be, Steph, I don't know.
So I've never done it. I've never actually I have a B license, but I've never had any desire to do a night jump. But assuming all goes to plan tomorrow, I'll be flying the night jumpers. So I'll let you know how that goes on a future show or segment.
So from a piloting point of view, how much more difficult is that for you to climb to? Is it 11 or 12,000 feet that you...
We do 14.
14, okay.
Mm-hmm. It's not going to be any more difficult, especially in the Kodiak. That's going to be no different than daytime, because our spots are all based off of GPS and everything else, so that doesn't make any big difference.
Wow, there you go, Matt. Look, that's your ideal opportunity. You can jump at night, and you won't even know you're.
What's the attraction? So Neil Lanmore wants to know, what's the attraction of night jumping? Something different to do. There's a little bit of an entertainment value. There are some jumpers who want no part of it, but they come down to the drop zone anyway when it happens, so that they can watch the event as it takes place. They may refer to it as heckling. But
is it fancy dress for the jump, Steph? Or?
So for anyone who's just spectating tomorrow and not jumping, they're supposed to be in costume. That is the alternative. If you don't come to jump, you have to come in costume.
So I was going to say at the parachute school near where me and Matt live here, which I think you've seen and you've been to, and actually it's not far from where Matt's yard is, where his coach is. You tend to find there's a lot more tandem jumpers there than there are single
sport jumpers.
Jumpers. Is that the case where you are, or is it more of a sort of a attack?
It's a lot more evenly matched. I think you'd actually probably find more. I mean, an average load is probably filled up with. It depends on the day. It depends on weekdays versus weekends. But there's a fair number of sport jumpers. Definitely, they might do 5 or 6 jumps a day.
So Richard Adams was actually asking in the chat room, how well is wind drift spotted for at night?
So it really shouldn't be any different than during the day. We use forecast winds, and we're going to be flying all day as well. Typically, those winds, they'll die off a little bit, especially surface winds at night. So those can be expected to be less. But at at the airfield, there's windsock out on the field. There's a tetrahedron. You should know what your winds are as you're jumping.
So, I mean, it's been said a little bit of it in a sort of like a jokey way here. So, can't see the ground, not yet, not yet, not yet, thump. I mean, genuinely, how do you know when like distances and stuff are involved to know that you're going to pull the parachute at the right time? I mean, are you watching altimeters on wrists?
Yeah, so you have a lighted altimeter.
Right. Okay.
You have to be able to see that.
Well, that's boring.
And you'll be able to see that all the way down through your pattern altitude, and then they will light the field in the landing area.
Right. Okay.
So it won't be completely.
I know,
dark.
but that's when you're several hundred thousand, when you're several thousand feet up, I don't suppose it looks particularly big. The light is you couldn't do it on that alone. I don't think, could you?
Well, you want your altimeter. That just makes things safe. And a lot of jumpers will have audible altimeters too in their helmets, so it'll beep at a predetermined or preset altitude.
Wow.
Yeah, indeed. Graham's saying in the chat room here, avoiding fancy dress seems like a good enough reason to throw myself out of an aircraft. Right. I mean, that's perhaps...
You hate dressing up that much for Halloween? Not wearing a costume. Let's do a parachute jump instead. It's fine.
Actually, how much planning, Steph, goes into a jump flight as a pilot yourself?
So most of it's just based on winds and planning out the jump run and the spot. We were actually talking about it this morning because you may know that we had some of your viewers might know there was a remnant of a hurricane that blew through our area yesterday, created some quite high winds, not a lot of rain, but definitely high winds. I'm going to actually pull back up because I was having a discussion with someone about a jump run this morning, trying to plan it out. Sometimes it's tricky because you can have winds aloft that are coming from a different direction than ground winds. So you want to know what your free fall winds are and also your canopy winds, because those are two different things. You're going to spend more time under canopy, so you have to take into account either planning your jump run in the right direction or offsetting it so that when jumpers are under canopy, they're not going to be fighting winds trying to get back to the drop zone. We're pretty lucky we have a gigantic landing area. It's still possible to miss it with a bad spot or bad planning, but it's pretty forgiving, I will say, in comparison to some places, especially in comparison to where Armando does his flying for his drop zone. That's a much smaller space. So this morning, winds on the ground were relatively light, like 7 knots out of northwest, I think. 3,000 feet, 18 knots out of 335. But then you got up to, so we're dropping from 14,000 feet. So at 12,000 feet, winds were out of the west at 40 knots and at 15,000 feet at 50 knots. Wow. So that's a little bit interesting. You have to calculate, you have to think as jumpers get out of the plane, they're going to drift back, with the relative winds under free fall. There are some things that we don't really want to drop people over. We don't want to get too far north of our drop zone because there's forests and trees and stuff that don't make for good landing areas, body of water. So we try not to let people out too far that direction or jump run in that direction if we can help it. And so then you end up going, you end up kind of doing this geometry of fly into the, so on jump run, fly into the prevailing winds, but then offsetting so that under canopy, if the winds are a different direction, that will be accounted for, if that makes sense.
There's 3 things, isn't there, Matt, that surround the drop zone where the local one is near us. One is a race track, like a go-kart track. The other one is a huge solar panel farm,
yes,
solar panel farm with solar panels, and the other one is a huge. It's called a biomass. It's huge domes where they ferment all the sort of kind of greenery and stuff, and they produce gas and stuff from it, and
it absolutely stinks, ladies
and
and gentlemen.
It absolutely stinks. And those are 3 things that are all in really close proximity to the drop zone at Beccles, near where we are.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the jump pilot there is taking all that into account in terms of where they want to have people getting out of the plane, and then taking into account what the winds are going to do once they do so.
That is true.
Sometimes the winds can be pretty tricky. I mean, we've definitely had days where upper level winds and canopy winds are almost 180 degrees off. That makes for some, or blowing very strong at just one specific altitude, like around, between 3,000 and 4,000 feet. It's 20 knots higher than at any other altitude. And that's right where people are opening their canopies. It makes for some interesting times sometimes.
Actually, Steph, before we close up, what are the kind of prices and stuff for the jump? For obviously, it's just a tandem jump for someone who
for a tandem jump. Yeah, I will.
Yeah, yeah. Steph gets paid to do it.
Yeah, that's. I don't get paid as much there as I do to appear on your show. So
yeah, more than the rest of us apparently. But anyway, I want your lawyer. That's what I want.
yeah. You should check with your check your contract.
Yeah, mental note. Yeah.
Let's see here. I was going to give you a tandem skydive during the weekday or weekend is $240.
Yeah, that's quite a lot cheaper than what it is for us here, Matt.
And then if you want, like a video and picture package, that's another up to $100 probably.
You keep saying this, Carlos, as if it's a subject that I know anything about whatsoever, and B, a subject that I'm ever likely to want to know anything about ever.
I just work out how much it's going to cost for us to get you. Anyway, it's
nothing because it won't be happening. It's as simple as that. Absolutely
it's about $388 here.
I literally couldn't care less. I literally couldn't care less.
So there's a couple of other questions here. I'll answer those from the chat room. Neil Lanmorn says, how much does physical fitness matter when jumping? It matters. Even if you're just doing a tandem skydive, you really want to have enough core strength on landing to be able to get your feet up and out in front of you. That makes the tandem instructor's job a lot easier when landing.
See, another good reason why I can't do it. Phew.
Then Micah wants to know if there's a weight limitation. That varies by drop zone, but generally around 225 pounds.
Excellent.
Is the weight limitation for a tandem jump.
Great news. Not happening. 2 days.
Actually, Neil says about the cold. I can. One of the things that I always remember from the time that Stuart took me up in the caravan here, and I sat right seat, was when the jumpers had all jumped out and the door was left open behind us.
We're still open.
Yeah. How
were you freezing?
Really cold it was.
It gets really cold sometimes. Yeah.
And then we're only going up to about. It's probably just over 11,000 feet that we went up to, but it was chilly, very chilly.
Yeah, I bet. It can definitely get chilly.
Okay.
Funny. So in the Kodiak, you can close the door. There's a handle that you pull on. It's got like a tension reel to it. So sometimes you'll drop jumpers, and if it's, especially on warm days, it's really noticeable. You'll get back down and you'll open the door back up if you shut down or something, and the air inside the aircraft is still cold from being up at 14,000 feet.
Oh right, yeah, of course, yeah.
It's kind of interesting.
Wow. Yeah, I bet. Yeah, fogs up a little bit, I dare say.
Sometimes sometimes it does fog.
Yeah, I bet.
Which is interesting. Always on short final.
And now we can always rely on Micah, you see. This is what we always have to try and remember, is Micah is the king of birthdays as far as we're concerned. So I think it's worth mentioning that what he's saying here, look, as a side note, it needs to be mentioned on today's show. Sunday is Nev's birthday, and on Monday, the lovely and youthful Gemma, the best part of the show, celebrates her 18th birthday. Look, there we go.
Yes, she does.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope you've actually got her a present. You're not finding out from Micah that, it's supposed to be her birthday.
No, I found out from my mum.
Oh, no!
That's terrible.
That's what mums are for.
Right, okay.
Well, happy birthday, Nev. Happy birthday, Gemma.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
I'll wake her up.
I'm genuinely horrified, Carlos. I don't know what to say.
And listeners, that's why Moon Pig was invented.
Right, okay. Yeah, but it doesn't sound like you had the reminder on it.
No, I forgot to put that bit on. Yeah.
Right, anyway, there we go. Yeah. So you're getting something
now
from
that
plane
I actually believe.
I
believe that 100%.
Yeah.
Something that Carlos got for himself on plane rides.
Yeah, divorce.
After everything that's in here now, and the window, I think if I done that,
Okay.
I would have to
Well,
move.
so Gemma, for her birthday, had a divorce. Essentially, that's what she'd have. Yeah. Okay. Lovely. And that's, ladies and gentlemen, where we need to start bringing things to a close.
Yes, social media links. Don't forget to look us up on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Search for Plain Talking UK. Don't forget as well the WhatsApp number if you want to put your picture on either my green screen or Matt's green screen in the PTK studios. +44 757 22 49166. You can email the show, podcast@plaintalkinguk.com, and also don't forget to check out our website, www.plaintalkinguk.com. On there you'll find the links to Patreon, where you if you haven't already joined us on Patreon, you can join us on Patreon, and you can donate to the show through that, which helps to obviously bring the show to you each week.
Dr.
And
Steph
covers all our costs.
Mind you, with her new contract, she can afford to.
With Dr. Steph, we can do some more Patrons now. And the links to PayPal on there as well if you want to make a one-off donation to the show. We would love that as well. That's very kind of you indeed. Also, there's a link on there to Amazon. If you do your shopping on Amazon, click on the link through our website and we get a small referral fee for that. Only once this week, sorry, Matt.
You had one job.
I know. It was £24 to be fair.
Yeah.
So you can click on them. And also, don't forget as well, we have got our glorious PTUK T-shirts on offer on the website. If you haven't already got yourself a PTUK T-shirt, they are 100% cotton, lovely, gorgeous T-shirts with the embroidered logo on the front and the print on the back as well. So you can grab yourself one of those.
And the mugs, don't forget the mugs.
And also, if you want to have a really nice cup of coffee or cup of tea or cup of beer or cup of whiskey or whatever you're having in the cup, you can get yourself a PTUK mug through the website as well, which it's gone down quite well actually. The mugs have
good quality.
Mugs have been good quality, yeah. So grab yourself a mug. So also tomorrow night, if you are at home and you're locked down or locked in or stuck in or just can't go out anywhere, which is what most of the world are at the moment, if you want to join me and someone called Matt who's going to be the voice in my ear tomorrow night, I will be doing a live streamed kitchen disco, one of the ones we do each month, live from my kitchen downstairs, and that'll be an all request and shout out kitchen disco, and that's kicking off at 7 p.m. UK time tomorrow night. And you can find me through the links on my Facebook page, and also if you take yourselves over to allaws.twitch.tv/Black Box Discos, you will find me on Twitch broadcasting that tomorrow night. So, Dr. Steph, social media reminders for our listeners from where, obviously, the show that you used to be a part of.
The show that I was formerly a part of and may in the future be a part of again.
I am sorry, dear Steph. I don't know what's the matter with him. I can only apologise.
We're just brief hiatus.
A brief hiatus, absolutely.
This is just our gift to you to allow you to go back and re-listen to any episodes that you may have missed, or listen to episodes you may have missed, because we know we put out quite a bit of content. Or if there is a favorite in the past that you want to re-listen to, or maybe just start from number one. That would be the Airline Pilot Guy show. That's at airlinepilotguide.com. You can also find us on all the usual social media sites. Twitter and Instagram are at APG Crew, and Facebook is facebook.com/airlinepilotguy. If you want to find me personally on Twitter, I'm at Dr. Steph Plum.
There we go. Yes, it's a great opportunity to actually catch up, as you say. So if anybody who is a little bit behind on their listening, then they've got a little bit of time to get themselves back up.
Yes,
so
we're not too much longer, because I hear rumors we won't be on break for very long.
Oh, that's great news. That is awesome news. Yeah. Let us know as soon as you know. That's going to be good. So that is where we're going to bring episode 342 to a close.
Big thanks to all the chat room tonight. You've been awesome as always. So thanks for joining us, all in the chat room.
Indeed.
Lovely to see you all. So that is...
Now, we normally, obviously, we've got titles and things to play here, but as it's Halloween, we're going to finish the show with a little bit of COVID-related Halloween music.
Calling all cars. Calling all cars. Man trying to enter an office building on 4th and Main with no mask. Repeat, no mask.
I walked into my job late last week when my co-workers all began to freak. They started cursing and began to shout, and said quite rudely as the boss threw me out, "You need a mask." "I need a COVID mask." "A COVID mask." It seemed a lot to ask. "To wear a mask." "To do a simple task." "Put on a mask." "I need a COVID mask." Made it mandatory almost every place, that we can't be seen unless we hide our face. I can't even leave my humble abode without something covering my mouth and nose. We need a mask. We need a COVID mask. A COVID mask. It seems a lot to ask. To wear a mask. Can't even mow my grass without a mask. Without a COVID mask. This mask wearing isn't fun, and the snitching has now begun. My neighbor called the hotline, 'cause my dog wasn't wearing one. Walking through the mall, a woman's voice did ring. Seemed she was troubled by just one thing. She pointed to the door, shook her fist and said,
"What are you trying to do, you jerk? Make everybody sick?"
"Forgot his mask. Forgot my COVID mask. It's COVID mask. Nobody gets a pass. That stupid mask. Can't even pump my gas without a mask. Without a COVID mask. Honey, I'm home.
What do you want?
I need to come in and get my mask."
Don't let Daddy in the house, Mommy. He's not wearing his mask.
No mask, no entry. Sorry.
"But honey..."
You should have taken it with you. You're not getting in this house.
See, a bit of Halloween fun. That's what we need. There we go.
It is. So from me, Carlos, here in my home studio, from Matt in the PTUK Master Suite studio, and from Dr. Steph in her home studio. Have a great weekend, everyone. Stay safe and see you all next week. Goodbye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.